Men may process trauma differently than women. Societal pressures can make it difficult for men to express vulnerability. Professional help is often essential for healing from deep emotional wounds. It's crucial to remember that healing is a journey, not a destination. With support and self-compassion, a wounded man can rebuild his life and find strength again. Sources and related content. We are conditioned to believe that life should be happy, that all the bad stuff happens to other people, and that if we're unhappy, there must be something wrong with us. But this couldn't be further from the truth, because life is inherently messy. And it's okay not to be okay. We don't need to pretend to be strong all the time. It's okay to be weak sometimes. In fact, being weak is what allows us to be human, to connect with others, and have compassion for ourselves and others. And when we allow ourselves to feel our feelings and lean into our vulnerabilities, we discover that we are stronger because of them. The problem arises when we ignore our emotions or try to numb them instead of dealing with them. Then they manifest in other ways, like health problems, addiction, or relationship issues. And the pain never truly goes away until we acknowledge it. So let us talk about the vanguards of vulnerability and why embracing our weaknesses is actually a sign of strength. Let's start with no. 1. Men may process trauma differently than women. From a young age, boys are taught to be tough, to suck it up, and do not show weakness. This starts at home, where fathers often feel that they need to be role models for their sons, and therefore feel unable to display any vulnerability in front of them. They also fear that showing weakness will make their son think that they are inadequate or unmanly. As a result, many men end up suppressing their emotions and avoiding therapy. This was the case for a client that I worked with, a successful businessman who seemed to have it all together. He was charming and charismatic, but behind the scenes he was struggling. His father had abandoned him when he was young, and he felt like he needed to prove himself in order to be loved. He became a high achiever in school and excelled in his career, but he was always chasing the next thing. He never allowed himself to relax and enjoy his success, and he was terrified of showing weakness. He was afraid that if people saw him as weak, they would take advantage of him. So he kept pushing himself harder and harder until he burned out. He started to experience panic attacks and had to take some time off to recover. That's when he reached out to me for help. Through therapy, he was able to explore his feelings of abandonment and learn how to regulate his emotions without suppressing them. He discovered that he didn't need to keep proving himself to anyone and that he was worthy of love, just the way he was. It's important to note that while some men avoid vulnerability due to societal pressures, others may feel more comfortable expressing their emotions and asking for help. Vulnerability is a natural human response regardless of gender, and everyone should feel safe expressing their true selves. No, 2. Societal pressures can make it hard for men to open up. In today's world, there is a lot of pressure on men to be strong, successful, and self-sufficient. They are often seen as the providers and protectors of the family, and are expected to put their needs aside for their family and career. This can make it hard for them to open up and be vulnerable, as they may feel like they are letting people down if they ask for help or admit their struggles. For example, a man may feel like he has to hide his depression because he doesn't want people to think he is weak or unsuccessful. He may fear that admitting he is depressed will make others see him as incapable, or that he'll be judged or ridiculed. This was the case for a client I worked with, a hardworking family man who was struggling with depression. He felt like he had to be strong for his family and couldn't let them see him upset. He tried to hide his depression from everyone, including his wife and friends. But as time went on, his depression worsened and he became increasingly isolated. He started to neglect his work and his relationships and eventually lost his job. That's when he reached out to me for help. Through therapy, he learned to recognize that it's okay to not be okay, and that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. He began to open up to his loved ones about his struggles, and they rallied around him, providing him with the support and understanding he needed to get better. It's crucial to understand that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It takes courage to open up and share your true self with others, especially in a society that often discourages it. No. 3. Professional help is needed to heal from deep emotional wounds. Sometimes the pain runs too deep or is too overwhelming to deal with on our own. We all have the capacity to heal, but we may need some help to get there. This is where professional help comes in. A therapist provides a safe, non-judgmental space to explore our emotions and develop healthy coping mechanisms. For example, someone who has experienced childhood trauma may have difficulty forming intimate relationships. As an adult, They may struggle with trust and feel uncomfortable being vulnerable in relationships. A therapist can help them process their trauma and develop healthier relationship patterns. They can also teach them coping skills to manage their emotions and develop a stronger sense of self. This was the case for a client I worked with who had experienced childhood abuse. She struggled with feelings of shame and unworthiness and found it difficult to trust others. With the help of a therapist, she was able to process her trauma and develop healthier coping mechanisms. She learned to accept herself and her body and now has fulfilling relationships. It's essential to remember that seeking professional help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Healing from deep emotional wounds takes time and effort, but with the right support, we can overcome our challenges and live happier, healthier lives. In conclusion, our vulnerabilities define our humanity and allow us to connect with others on a deeper level. By embracing our weaknesses, we discover our inner strength and resilience. However, societal pressures and traditional gender roles often make it difficult for men to be vulnerable. They may feel like they have to be strong and self-sufficient all the time, which can lead to negative consequences for their mental health and well-being. It's important to remember that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but rather a strength. Seeking professional help when needed is a sign of courage and self-awareness. If you are a man struggling with your mental health, know that you are not alone. Reach out to a trusted friend, family member, or mental health professional today. Together, we can break down the stigma surrounding mental health and create a world where everyone feels comfortable expressing their true selves. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up, as I always appreciate your support. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.